The next discipline tool is something that you use by doing nothing. A natural consequence is something that will happen if you do nothing. Now, in a situation like riding a bike in the street, you don't want to use a natural consequence because if you don't do anything, the child could get hit by a car. So it has to be a safe consequence. There has to be a consequence. If a child interrupts me at dinner time, nothing consistently always will happen. I would have to make something happen. I would have to say something. Nothing automatically happens. And it needs to be quick. If a child's not brushing their teeth, it's going to take months before they start to get cavities. And that's such a long time that the lesson's going to be lost. So it needs to be quick and immediate, there has to be one, and it needs to be safe. Then all you have to do is just reveal it. If you go outside when it's raining without an umbrella, you're going to get wet. If you go outside when it's cold and you don't wear your gloves, your hands are going to get cold. You wouldn't say it at 20 below because that wouldn't be safe. But if it's something that would be safe and it's not going to harm them to get a little bit wet, you allow them to experience the consequence. When they do, and I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil all the fun, the only thing you can't say is, I told you so. Because then it's just the whole focus back to, see, na, 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 you know, I knew better. Instead, just say, so, what did you learn about that? Or, good decision, glad you decided to grab those gloves on your way out. So just focus on the lesson that they learned. The next discipline tool is to simply take action with or without notice. This is deciding what you're going to do rather than what you're going to make the child do. When I do my parenting classes, I always find the tallest, biggest person in the room and have this person stand up next to me. It's usually a guy. And I'll say, okay, pretend that this person is my teenage son and he's being disrespectful. I say, don't talk to me like that, don't sass me, go to your room. Can I make him go to his room? I mean, it's pretty hard to do that without getting physical, and then at that point I'm kind of crossing the line into punishment. But what I can say is, look, I can tell you want to tell me something, but I'm not willing to be spoken to disrespectfully. I'm willing to listen. I'm going to leave. When you've calmed down, come and talk to me and I'll listen, as long as you're talking respectfully. That's something I can follow through on. So I get what I want, which is to not be spoken to disrespectfully, and he can get what he wants, which is to be heard if he talks to me respectfully. That's revealing. Sometimes you don't say anything, you just do it. So I'm driving along and the kids are arguing about which radio station we're going to be listening to. And they're arguing, the radio's playing, and I'm trying to drive. I can just turn off the radio and they're going to say, what are you doing? We were listening to that. And I'll say, I'm trying to concentrate on driving and the radio was on and I was distracted by your arguing. When you guys are done arguing, I'll turn the radio back on. So it's your call. There's no hard and fast rules. It's your call whether or not you reveal or not. If revealing would kind of be a threat, then you can just take action and just decide what you're going to do. The next and last of the best discipline tools is problem solving. Problem solving is when we say, look, we've got a problem, poor decision was made here, let's work together and figure out how we're going to solve this. What ideas do you have? For the next time this happens, what do you think should happen? Or even for this time. This was a problem, here's why, what do you think can happen? An easy way to remember the problem solving process is to remember the word BED, B-E-D. Brainstorm ideas. Any ideas are fine. Then you go back and you evaluate the ideas and you say, okay, well, what would happen if we did this? Are you okay with that idea? I'm okay with this idea, or I'm not. And then you decide on a plan. You get agreements, and you even come up with a backup plan. If either one of us breaks that agreement, then what will happen? So those are your best discipline tools. There's 3 tools that are discipline tools, but you have to be really careful how you use them. They are the 3 most misused discipline tools. The first one is restrictions. A lot of people use restrictions for everything. It's kind of like having a screwdriver and using it for every task in the house. Screwdrivers are great, they're really handy, but they're not the best tool to use for everything. Restrictions, to be used in the most effective way, need to be related to an abuse of a privilege. Eating, shelter, clothing, those are rights. To be treated with respect, that's a right. Privileges are TV, Nintendo, driving, those kinds of things are privileges. So if someone has a privilege and they don't use it responsibly, then they're showing that they're not ready to have that privilege. And so that's the logic and the lesson that's there in terms of privileges. Progressive ones, progressive restrictions are what we've illustrated already with the bike, which is the first time it happened, it started small. If it happens again, it increases in time. Regressive restrictions, I hope you don't ever have to use. You rarely need to use them. This is when the police show up at your door or something really big violation, like kids went out of where they were allowed, across a main street, went into a convenience store and started acting up and causing trouble. Police bring them back, and I'm saying, that's it. You know, you're restricted to the house for today or whatever, a reasonable period of time. And everything, all privileges. So that day they wouldn't have. Now you don't throw everything out in the garbage and clear out their room, but for that day they're not allowed to have those privileges. The next day, if they show they can be responsible with the privilege that they do have, you give them back more. When they show they can be responsible, then you give them back some more. So the next day maybe they can play in the house with their stuff. The next day they can play in the yard. The next day, if all goes well, then they can play maybe within a few houses or with their neighborhood friends. So they're showing that they're kind of earning back their privileges. But usually you can go the other way around with the progressive that works its way up. Logical consequences are when you decide, well, because you did this, this is what will happen. And they're really tricky to use because they have to fit the 4 R's. So go back to that section and make sure that whatever you come up with fits that. The last one that tends to be the most misused is timeout, and it's often misused because technically it's actually not a discipline tool. It's actually an anger and stress management tool. The most effective use of timeouts is to help children learn anger and stress management. Ideally, we want to use it, it's only logically related for when they're out of control to help them learn how to manage their anger and get back in control. We want to reveal it ahead of time and tell them when you're really angry, here's where you can go and here's what you can do to calm down. In shifting our thinking around about timeouts, timeouts are not the discipline. It's what we all do to chill out, get ourselves back under control, and that includes us, not just kids. And then once we're calm, then we can discuss discipline. Where they can go is anywhere. If they calm down better when they're alone, great. But sometimes kids actually get more upset and calm down better if they're around others. What they can do is whatever will help them calm down. So if drawing, writing, something expressive would be helpful, that can help them work through their anger. Or running circles around the yard, getting that angry energy out would be helpful. Kicking a ball instead of kicking you. Timeouts last until the child is calm. As soon as we put a timer, it turns the whole thing into a power struggle. And when it's over, if all you needed was for them to calm down, fine. They come on back. If they did something that we need to discuss, then we do problem solving, which we've already discussed. So I believe, yes.
Thank you.
Any time for questions and answers or not?
If you have any questions, please call 542-7222. We will now take questions from our live audience. Yes, sir.
I'm Joe Long, and I really appreciate the information you gave. I don't know what children you're teaching, but I made a mistake about my daughter here, and you said something about, like, I'll say something like, do the dishes. She leave a cup. I do go down there and put everything back in the sink, and it's only because that was how I was raised. Mm-hmm. And it taught me to be thorough. So, in other words, I double-check myself before I turn off the light and tell someone I'm finished. Mm-hmm. Now I need from you a way to get out doing this so she don't think that I'm wrong when I get home.
Parents always have a choice, and you've always got choices. Also, some are more effective choices, some are less effective choices. What I like to, there's a little quick story that I like to tell about how we were raised and how that influences us. There's a story I call the roasting pan story. And it goes a little like this. I go to dinner and I'm putting the roast into the pan, and my mom says, don't forget to cut off the ends of the roast. I'm like, why would I cut the ends off the roast? That's the best part. She goes, I don't know, but that's the way my mom always did it, and her roast always turned out fine. So Grandma's there. So I asked Grandma, why did you cut off the ends of the roast? And she says, I don't know. Grandma always did it. And her roasts are always really good. So I go ask Great Grandma. And she says, oh, honey, that was the only pan I had, and I had to cut the ends off just to get it to fit in the pan. So the reason, the moral of the story is, the reason we originally started doing something usually had a good reason, and it worked. But as it kind of gets passed down, and as we have more pans, to follow the analogy, we have more options, then we have more choices. We can still choose to do it that way, but it might not necessarily, and it still might turn out fine. You know, in spite of cutting off the ends, the roast still might turn out fine, but it's possible that another option might be even better. So every parent has their options, and my job, as I view it, is to simply help people become aware of what their options are, the pros and cons of those options, and it's up to each person to choose whatever they want to do. They're your kids, so it's your choice.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from our audience? Again, if you have any questions or concerns, please call 542-7222. Okay, well, again, thank you, Ms. Jody. Okay, this will conclude our program.
Would you like me to share resources?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. There are some resources. I just thought I would, since we did a little abbreviated version here, if you would like more resources, particularly specifically on discipline, if you go to parentstoolshop.com, I got a ton of articles. There's quite a few on discipline versus punishment and some of the tools, a little bit more explanation than what you got in the handout. There's also 3 different audios. 2 of them are called Take the Bite Out of Discipline. One is a live workshop, one was a teleseminar, and then there's also a special teleseminar I did with some experts and parents from around the world on corporal punishment. I also have a PowerPoint file on the research from the American Academy of Pediatrics about corporal punishment. If you send me an email, I'd be happy to send that. And the Parents Tool Shop book is the most comprehensive information on all aspects of parenting. So I'll just leave my contact information up there at the end. There's tons of freebies, my internet radio show,
Okay.
and all that. So please feel free to contact me. I am here to support you.
Okay. On behalf of Dayton Public Schools, Dr. Kurt Stannett, Superintendent, Office of School Improvement and External Resources, Mr. Charlie Graham, Executive Director, Dr. Veronica Watkins, Family and Community Program Coordinator, the Title I Parent Resource Teachers, Francis Gant, Beverly Horowitz, Willie A. Terrell Jr., and myself, Sherry Wade. Thank you for tuning in to Parent Connections, where parents and schools work together to talk, listen, and connect. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.